Hi everybody and welcome to the other knowledge session video for the month of October. This one is going to be about carbon footprints and the truth about carbon footprints. What you need to know about your carbon footprint and climate justice. This workshop is going to be a little bit less interactive than the fashion workshop. There's quite a bit of heavy information in this one. So we're just going to go through it, and of course if you have any questions at the end, although I'm not in person to be able to answer them, you can ask your youth leader to write the questions to me and I will reply. So let's jump into the truth about carbon footprints. So first and foremost, what is a carbon footprint? Well, a carbon footprint is a calculation of the total amount of greenhouse gases that are generated by our actions. Carbon footprint calculators examine our food, home, travel, and shopping habits, and some even look at more than that. But there is a secret about carbon footprints that you might not know. So what I'm going to do is, we're going to watch the first ever carbon footprint television advert way back from 2005. Because it was back in 2005, this video has aged very poorly. It's very, very blurry. The quality is not great. But I want you to keep an eye out in this video for the brand. So what brand actually released this video, and I also want you to consider who we're seeing and what they're saying.
What size is your carbon footprint?
The carbon footprint, that I don't know.
Whatever it is, the whole population of the world, make that a very, very big number.
How much carbon I produce? Is that it?
You mean the effect that my living has on the earth in terms of the products I consume?
Okay, so did you notice the logo at the end and at the beginning and who made that advertisement? Did you see anything interesting with that advertisement? Did anything not sit right with you watching that advertisement? A few of those things should probably have happened, and the reason is that the secret is carbon footprints are actually a form of greenwashing. So greenwashing is similar to brainwashing, making people think certain things, but greenwashing makes you believe that something is more environmentally friendly than it actually is. So the truth is, carbon footprint calculators are a form of propaganda that were set up to trick us, to distract us from the most important issues that are happening when it comes with climate change. So let's have a look at the history of the carbon footprint calculator to see why this is the case. So, the concept of a carbon footprint was introduced in 2005 by the fossil fuel giant corporation British Petroleum, or more commonly known as BP. And BP were the ones who created that advertisement. Many believe that BP invented the personal carbon footprint to distract people from what is really needed to combat climate change. Why create a distraction? So BP knew that the real element, the real thing that would make a difference to combating climate change was for giant corporations like themselves to change their practices. But changing their practices will impact their profits, their money. And since profit making is still the driving force of our current economic system, it was easier to make people believe that their individual action is what will make the real difference in curtailing climate change. It's a simple and effective idea that distracted millions, and still distracts millions of people from what is really needed to tackle climate change. In fact, and this is just to give you a really big example of just how much these corporations want to distract you, because this is how much they're polluting. If you, the person watching this video, cut out 100% all of your emissions for the rest of your entire life, you would save 1 second worth of emissions from the global energy sector. So let's break this down. Let's have a think about this. What we're really saying here is that there are so many emissions being pumped into our atmosphere by corporations that if you stopped polluting entirely for the rest of your life, you would only save 1 second of overall pollution entering the global energy sector. That's how much you could save in comparison to all of the emissions being pumped out by these large corporations. So that might give you an indication of just how much pollution we're talking about here. So what is the real thing needed to combat climate change? It's called systemic change. So our economic system is hugely flawed by having so many corporations focusing on the amount of money they can bring in. It causes them to ignore the amount of pollution that they let out. Because if they had to cut their pollution, they would also lose money because the more eco-friendly alternatives at the moment are more expensive. Systemic change is built up of the word system. As you can see there, systemic. And what that means is that the whole system needs to change. And that's from the core. So we need to change our economic model to focus not on increasing profits, but instead to focus on the development of people, the protection of the environment, and the mending of the many, many centuries of inequalities between the global north and the global south. Systemic change of this kind would be bad for fossil fuel corporations and other big corporations. They would lose a lot of money. So instead, BP developed the personal carbon footprint to shift the blame from them to us, you and me. What needs to systemically change? The answer to this is essentially everything we do to make our lives easier and more comfortable. So think about all of the things that make your life easier and more comfy. All of those things are intertwined with our current flawed economic model. So where companies will make things for profit, we buy them because they make our lives easier. So let's look at a few examples. We could look at processed food that you can just pop into a fossil fuel powered oven. The streets that we walk and drive on are made of hardened fossil fuels, not to mention the liquid fossil fuels known as petrol and diesel that we pump into all of the vehicles that drive on those fossil fuel roads. And bear in mind, those vehicles are also made from fossil fuels. The clothes that we wear today are made of plastic, which is a fossil fuel. And if you haven't watched the fast fashion video yet for this month's knowledge session, it'll be explained way more in that video too. The gadgets we use, the webcam that I'm talking to you in right now, the PC I'm looking at, the screen that you're looking at to watch this workshop, phones, laptops, tablets, game consoles, they're all made from fossil fuels and they all use fossil fuels to run. And even the pleasant temperatures that we artificially create around us, like heaters in the winter and coolers in the summer, everything that we do to make our lives easier makes life for the planet more difficult. All of the things I just mentioned need fixing and need more sustainable solutions. But in fact, we have solutions for many of the issues that I just mentioned. We have renewable fuels, we have electric cars, we have eco-friendly clothing and locally grown food. However, we do not have these products in the mainstream market yet because larger corporations profit from the system that we have right now. So they don't want it to change. And in addition to this, and this is really important, larger corporations hold a lot of power, especially over our government and governments all over the world. So the likes of BP, British Petroleum, and Amazon, for example, are two massive corporations. They make a lot of money, which means they are also able to bring a lot of money into a country. Governments also want money to be brought into a country because then they can do more stuff with that money. So oftentimes governments will allow these massive corporations to kind of keep operating as normal. Having governments on the side of big businesses is one of the reasons why it's so difficult to change the system, but we need to change the system. So let's go back to the carbon footprint. Should you feel personally responsible for climate change? In a way, yes. Personal lifestyle choices are important in the effort to stem climate change, but not for the reasons that you might think. You certainly shouldn't be made to feel guilty if you cannot do something, and you certainly should focus more on those governments and big corporations than we currently are. But let's delve into this a little bit deeper. We need that systemic change that we talked about, and in order to make climate action and climate justice the norm, and it should be the norm, people have to see it as normal. They have to see climate action and climate justice as the norm that we live in our everyday lives. That is what we need for that systemic change to happen. The more people who live eco-friendly lifestyles and oppose those who don't when they can afford to live eco-friendly lifestyles, the more people will join the fight. So if there is somebody who cannot afford to be eco-friendly, then they are left out of this equation, as in they should not be made to feel guilty in any way that they cannot afford to be green. But if somebody can afford to be green and are choosing not to, then that is the kind of lifestyle that we need to make not the norm anymore. We need eco-friendly lifestyles to be the norm as long as you can afford to do so. And if you can't afford to do so, then we need help put in place for those who can't afford to. Politicians need to know and feel strongly that people care. When governments don't care, we need to vote them out. Now, a lot of you won't be at voting age yet, although there is a potential change to the law to move the voting age down to 16. I hope that becomes a reality, but I don't know yet. But whenever you do get to voting age, or even if you have friends around you or family around you that can vote, you can still talk to your family and friends and try to influence their vote. Now, you can't pressure them to change their vote. Their vote is their vote. But if they're said, I'm still on the fence, I still don't know who I'm voting for, you can talk to them about your own opinions and tell them why you think it's important for them to vote for these people rather than these people, because those ones care about the environment, these ones care about profit. You can have that discussion. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you do get to voting age, you should really, really take it upon yourself to do your research into the people who are running for elections. You should make sure that you are voting for the people that you want to see at the top. So, simply, here are the best two things that we can do. The first is vote at the ballot, and the second is vote with your wallet. So vote at the ballot is to actually physically change the government if it's not working for you. If it's not working for you and you want to see change, you need to campaign. And you can campaign at any age. You don't need to wait until you're 18 or at voting age to campaign. You can campaign now and try and get the people that you want to see elected, because they will listen to science and they will help with the climate change movement. The second thing is to vote with your wallet. So voting with your wallet basically means that you will try, if you can, and if you can afford to buy the more eco-friendly options and the reusable options when you can. So for example, when you get older and you're buying your first car, if you can afford an electric car, buy an electric car, because that gives more money to the electric car movement, which they will be able to use then to produce more and better and more efficient electric cars again for the future. And hopefully we'll start to move away from cars that chug petrol and diesel. So vote with your wallet. Put your money where you think those organizations need the money, and pull your money away from large corporations that are destroying the planet. The next one is really important. Promote your priorities through your behaviors and actions. So there are a few little things that you can do here, but basically if a lot of people look at you and say that you're super eco-friendly, they might think, you know what, I should probably be more eco-friendly too. That starts the link to this systemic change that we need, where people are looking at their lives and thinking, yeah, maybe I should be more eco-friendly. So here's a few things that you can do. Eat a more plant-based diet and try to move away from meat. You don't have to give up meat entirely, but moving to a more plant-based diet definitely has less emissions than meat-based diet. So try and do a little shift, like have a meat dishes maybe 3 days a week, and 4 days a week try and eat vegetarian. Cycle or walk more. Buy second-hand. Use reusable products and do reuse them. It's really important. Stop buying so much, and when you do buy something, make sure you plan to use it for a long, long time. So when it comes to the reusable products, if you have a lot of flimsy plastic bags that are lying around your house right now, use them. Don't go out and buy a whole new bunch of tote bags and then just throw out the plastic bags. Those plastic bags are perfectly good to use. Use them until the end of their life, and then when you have no bags left anymore, then go and look at buying a tote bag, or look at buying a reusable plastic bag, one of those really strong ones from the shopping centres. But make sure that whatever you do spend your money on, you do plan to use it until the end of its life, and hopefully the end of its life will be a long time away. And lastly, but most importantly, be loud. The most important thing that you can do is to align your individual action and hold the government and corporations accountable for what they do. The more people who do this, the faster we will see big businesses and governments change to keep up with the new eco-friendly demands of the citizens. Then we will be one step closer to the much needed systemic change. And if you would like to take action after this workshop, especially on holding government and big corporations accountable, the next slide is for you. It's this end of workshop activity. Want to take action? Write a group email to your local councillor about your concerns on climate change and climate justice. Write about how you plan to fight for systemic change through the ballot box. If governments know they will be at risk of losing their jobs if they don't care, they'll start to care. So tell them that once you hit voting age, you hope that they realize that you will be looking at their environmental policies and their climate justice policies, and if they do not align with you and your whole group, then you will not vote for them once you hit voting age, and you will be encouraging family and friends not to vote for them also, unless their policies are strengthened or unless they create policies in the first place. If you don't know who your local councillors are, you can find this out on www.whoismytd.com. And all you have to do is type in your rough address, like your area address, and it'll bring you up a list of all of your councillors and their phone numbers and their email addresses. So you can get all of their emails, all of their phone numbers, and you can email/call away and tell them what you want to fight for. And I really, really encourage you to do that. But thank you so much for participating. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you learned something interesting in today's workshop. Once again, if you have any questions at all, please do get your youth worker to reach out to me and to talk to me. Ask me your questions and I will respond, I promise. But this was part of the Future Generations Climate Justice Project with all of these wonderful groups, and I'm sure that you can see your group's logo up there too. Thank you so much, and hopefully I will be talking to you again really soon for the next knowledge session in November. Hope you have a lovely day, and we'll see you soon. Bye!